Catherine has recently become obsessed with writing, and she posts her poems and short stories on social media every day. It has become one of the few highlights of her daily life. One day, she receives a private message on Instagram from a man named Adam, who enthusiastically praises her work, claiming that her words have the power to penetrate the soul. That's how the two started their first meaningful conversation. "Catherine, your poetry is fantastic. I think your words inspire passion and vision for life." "Thank you, Adam. These are just some of my essays. I'm glad you like them. If you're ever confused or need to talk, feel free to reach out to me. I'm willing to listen." Impressed by Adam's sincerity, Catherine gradually became accustomed to receiving daily messages from Adam, which gave her a touch of warmth and understanding that she hadn't felt for a long time. Adam not only encouraged Catherine to continue writing, but also opened a new door for her to enter a world full of excitement and possibilities. Meanwhile, I seemed to be in another world. I immersed myself in the game every day after work as if it was my only relief. As for Catherine's writing, I never really bothered to read her work even though I knew what she was doing. Our interactions became less and less frequent, and I assumed that Catherine had just become silent because she was so tired from work. One night, I was playing a game in the living room when Catherine came up to me and said, "Ryan, I wrote a new poem tonight. Would you like to hear me read it?" I don't look up. "Catherine, wait until I'm done with this game." She quietly walked away, and I didn't think much of it, just continued to immerse myself in my own world. However, I didn't notice the disappointment in her eyes, her heart that was drifting away. Gradually, Catherine began to show more and more indifference to me. Communication between us became sparse, and she turned to Adam for comfort. I began to feel confused and upset, but remained hopeful that it was temporary. I stubbornly believed that Catherine just needed some time and space. One evening, I found Catherine sitting silently on the edge of her bed, looking grave. I walked over and asked softly, "Catherine, are you okay?" She smiled slightly. "Well, just tired. Don't worry." Despite what Catherine said, I felt the distance between us widening. Sometimes, she would secretly text late at night, her phone always on silent. I didn't want to pry into her privacy, but the growing suspicion inside me was impossible to ignore. I decided to try to communicate with Catherine, but every time I opened my mouth, she was always evasive and showed obvious uneasiness. "Catherine, I feel like we've been a little distant lately. You can tell me if there's anything wrong." I tried to say. She looked up and at me, wanting to say something. "Ryan, I'm just tired from work. It's really okay." This conversation was repeated several times, each time to no avail. I felt increasingly powerless and frustrated that Catherine's insecurity haunted me, and I didn't know how to help her, let alone if anyone else had entered her life. All-night gaming became a form of escapism for me, because in this virtual world, I didn't have to face the confusion and pain of reality. Catherine, on the other hand, seemed to be quietly slipping into another future that she thought was bright. Catherine and Adam officially meet at a fancy social event hosted by the company. It was not an ordinary evening. In a moment's conversation, I could see Catherine's long dormant eyes sparkling again, and she showed great interest in what Adam had to say. Adam seemed to know how to impress people with his words better than I did, and his confidence and humor put Catherine at ease like she had never felt before. "Catherine, I've always believed that everyone has the right to pursue their dreams. You have to be brave to take that step," Adam said firmly. Catherine looked at him and smiled. "Thank you, Adam. Your encouragement means a lot to me." At that moment, I sensed that she was no longer the woman who only opened her heart to me every day, and that Adam was coming into her heart. Catherine and Adam's relationship heats up quickly, and they occasionally meet for coffee, chat, and even travel together. Whenever Catherine returned, she seemed extra excited. She told me that she had been to some art exhibitions and had seen some paintings that were particularly worth seeing. Although I wasn't too interested in this, her happiness infected me and made me let go of my uneasiness for a while. "Ryan, Adam said I have the potential to try and write a novel. I'm really starting to think I could do it," Catherine said. I echoed, "That's great, Catherine. If that's your dream, go after it." But deep down, I felt a twinge of uncertainty as to whether this was her dream or Adam's. As time went on, Catherine's attitude towards me became colder and colder. Her concern for me disappeared almost without a trace, replaced by endless silence and detachment. Even a dinner together became a luxury. She was always busy with her writing and her interactions with Adam. At one point, she resolutely said, "Ryan, I have an important party tonight and won't be home for dinner." I nodded, and though my mind was full of questions, I could only suffer in silence. Her cell phone was always on silent, and sometimes I would see her secretly texting in the night. A wave of confusion and anxiety flooded my mind. I wanted to inquire, but every time I saw her tired face, my words were swallowed back. By chance, I found a beautiful necklace on my vanity. The necklace was unique in style, delicate and beautiful, and obviously not from me. With misgivings in my mind, I walked up to Catherine and asked, "Catherine, who is this necklace from?" She looked a little flustered. "Oh, it's from a friend of mine. Nothing special." This uncertain answer did not quell my doubts, but rather added to my anxiety. The changes in her were becoming more and more strange to me, and the woman who had once been my heart and soul seemed to be gone. I began to realize that the problem was far more complex and dire than I had thought. Faced with the obvious changes in Catherine, I decided to try to connect with her again. On a quiet evening, I put down all my games and focused on sitting down with her face to face. "Catherine, is something wrong between us? You've been so cold lately. I'm worried." She lowered her head and didn't answer for a long time before finally saying quietly, "Ryan, I'm just feeling a little bored with life." We talked for a long time, but she never revealed anything substantial. Catherine behaved anxiously and refused to talk deeply. I was deeply helpless and distressed by her evasiveness. That night, Catherine continued to lie beside me in silence while I stared at the ceiling, my mind filled with confusion and anxiety. Our lives were caught in a silent impasse, an unbreakable silence. Catherine sinks into her relationship with Adam, from whom she finds a long-lost passion and understanding, as well as a vision for the future. Being with Adam made her feel relaxed and free, a sense of freshness and security that she had never felt in our boring married life. "Adam, you know, every time I see you, I feel an unspeakable sense of reassurance." Catherine smiled. "Catherine, you deserve to be cherished and to pursue your own happiness." Adam responded, tenderness filling the two as their eyes met. Catherine's reliance on Adam grows with each passing day, and she begins to believe that Adam is the one who can truly understand her dreams and help her realize them. However, I felt more alienated and powerless than ever before, and Catherine continued to act coldly towards me, even showing obvious inaccessibility at times. Whenever I tried to communicate with her, she was always perfunctory and even showed strong resistance. At one point, I tentatively asked, "Catherine, how have you been? Do we need to go out for a break sometime?" She just nodded lightly. "Ryan, I'm busy, let's talk about it sometime." This perfunctory behavior added to my inner anxiety. I began to notice that her cell phone was always on silent, and she was always texting at night. I sometimes sneaked glimpses of her tension and concentration on the screen of her cell phone that wasn't addressed to me. As my suspicions grew stronger, I decided to take action to track Catherine's movements. I discovered that she frequented an art gallery called The Gallery, which became a frequent meeting place for her and Adam. Sometimes she stayed there late into the night, clearly interested in the activities there. I decided to follow Catherine to see what she was up to. One evening, I followed her to the gallery. When I saw her with Adam, my heart sank to the bottom. They were talking intimately in the gallery, and the smile and happiness on her face struck me as strange and painful. Standing outside the gallery, I saw Adam say to Catherine, "You should be brave enough to pursue your dreams and not be held back by the world." Catherine's smile widened when she heard those words, and the joy and fulfillment that came out of those eyes was something I had never seen before. I couldn't look any further and hurried out of there. Back home, I sat alone in the darkened living room with my thoughts racing. I began to reflect on our relationship. Had I indeed neglected Catherine's feelings? Where had the love we once had for each other gone? Faced with a series of revelations, I was overwhelmed with pain and anger, but more than anything, I was lost. I decided to talk to Catherine face to face. When she returned home, I asked in a hushed voice, Catherine, is there something wrong between us? I saw you with Adam today. Can you explain? Catherine's face turned pale for a moment and she choked out, Ryan, I'm sorry, but I really have fallen in love with Adam, and he's opened my eyes to worlds and possibilities I hadn't seen on my own. Her confession was like a sharp blade piercing my heart. I writhed in agony while she seemed to be in deep repentance and confusion, still unable to pull herself out. It was hard to sleep at night, and I began to think deeply about the problems in our marriage. Recalling our little moments, I realized that I had been so busy with work and play that I had neglected her emotional needs and dreams. Perhaps Catherine's dependence on Adam was not simply an infatuation, but a longing for a new life and a disappointment in her old one. However, I was never willing to give up. Was our marriage truly hopeless? Is there anything I can do to salvage our relationship? I couldn't forget the images I had seen in front of the gallery, and I spent that night on the couch with my heart in my mouth, thinking about Catherine's betrayal as a lingering shadow in my mind. Early the next morning, I decided to have a thorough conversation with her, even though I had a feeling that it might be a painful and fruitless exchange. When Catherine came home, I was filled with anxiety and questions, but I tried to be smooth and said, Catherine, we need to talk. Your relationship with Adam has put our marriage in jeopardy. Catherine sighed softly, pain in her eyes. Ryan, I'm sorry. Adam opened my eyes to a different world, and I felt like finding new possibilities, but I know it hurt you. Her confession was like a sharp blade piercing my heart. I writhed in agony while she seemed to be in deep repentance and confusion, still unable to pull herself out. Our conversations failed to resolve anything, and her guilt and confusion left me even more at a loss. Catherine quit her excuse to keep writing every day and began to become more reticent. The distance between us was growing, and there was hardly a bridge between us. A few days later, I noticed that Catherine's social behavior was becoming more and more unusual, and she was always disappearing to various inexplicable events. Finally, I decided to reveal all my suspicions. Catherine, do you really want our marriage to go on like this? Are you trying to escape our problems through Adam? I asked bluntly. Catherine was silent for a moment, then replied in a low voice, Ryan, this relationship has given me new hope and courage, but I've inadvertently found myself lost. In the face of Catherine's silence and confusion, I felt compelled to find out what Adam was really like as a person. I began to secretly investigate his background and hoped to obtain some useful information through various channels. I started by looking through Catherine's social media accounts for clues about Adam. I found Adam's profile to be very informative. He seemed to be a passionate photographer and traveler, and he had a fairly wide circle of friends. But the more carefully I looked, the more I realized that some of his words and actions were a bit unusual. Next, I contacted some of Catherine's friends to try to find out more about Adam. Eventually, a college friend named Mark told me some key information. Ryan, I'll be honest with you. I've heard that Adam isn't a very trustworthy guy, and he's had some bad records in our alumni circle before. There was once a girl who was scammed badly by him. I suggest you be careful, Mark whispered. I was shocked and outraged to hear these words, but I also knew better than to jump to conclusions based on these one-sided statements alone. I continued to search for more evidence. Through continuous investigation and clue collection, I gradually realized that there were a large number of contradictions and inconsistencies in Adam's personal information on multiple social media platforms. He portrayed different images on different platforms, sometimes as a successful entrepreneur, sometimes as a literary young man who loved art, but there seemed to be a lack of reasonable correlation between these identities. So, I decided to pretend to be someone interested in art investing and meet with Adam to try to get more information. After a lot of maneuvering, I finally met up with him at a coffee shop. Adam, I've heard that you're very experienced in art investment, and I've had some interest lately, so I was wondering if I could ask you for some advice about it. I said tentatively. Adam appeared to be very enthusiastic and started to introduce me to various investment projects and opportunities, and claimed that he had channels to acquire some rare artworks. Through this conversation, I gradually realized that everything he said was full of exaggerations and falsehoods, and many details did not stand up to scrutiny. After finishing the conversation, I began to look into Adam's true background through legal channels. I found some court records and discovered that Adam had been indicted several times for fraud and deception, but had skillfully escaped justice. Armed with this evidence, I decided to confess everything to Catherine. After dinner that day, I walked up to her and laid out all the evidence in front of her. Catherine, I know you trust Adam, but I have to tell you that he's not the man you think he is. He has a shady past, and these are the proofs I've investigated. My voice was firm and calm. Catherine looked at the evidence, her face growing paler and paler, and finally she sat down helplessly on the couch, tears pouring down her face. Ryan, I really don't know what to say. I thought he was the fulfillment of my new hopes and dreams, but now it seems like I was really wrong. She choked out. Faced with such a situation, I knew I had to make a difficult decision, and Catherine's pain and confusion were unbearable, but I hoped more than anything that we could rediscover our lost relationship. Catherine, if you want, we can still work together to repair our marriage. I know it's a difficult process, but I believe there is still a chance for things to turn around if we are willing to face it together, I said firmly. Catherine gradually calmed down, and a glimmer of longing and hope flashed in her eyes. She finally faced her heart, gave up her fantasies about Adam, and decided to revisit our relationship. We started to get our lives back on track. We cut off contact with Adam and began to relearn how to communicate better. Catherine began to express her feelings and confusion openly, and I gradually learned how to listen and understand her. Gradually, our long talks each night revitalized our relationship, and we began to rediscover what made each other tick. Although there were many arguments and ups and downs in the process, we both realized that if we didn't work together, we would lose each other forever. After exposing Adam's deception, Catherine and I decided to revisit our marriage. She apologized to me and deeply reflected on her past choices and actions, and I saw in them what I had not done enough in my marriage. Although we decided to give each other another chance, the wounds inside still need time to heal. Ryan, I'm so grateful that you didn't give up on us. I know I put you through a lot during this time, Catherine said as she gathered up the paintings she had brought home from the gallery. Catherine, we all need time. I have a lot to improve on as well, I responded. Our lives seemed to be back on track, and although the process was difficult, we began to truly understand the meaning and responsibility in our marriage. However, despite our efforts to repair our relationship, Catherine occasionally showed uncertainty and confusion about her future. On one occasion, I noticed her browsing her phone for content on self-improvement and entrepreneurship, and it was clear that she was still pursuing her dream. Catherine, if you want to continue to pursue your dreams, we can plan together, but this time, we'll have to choose carefully, I suggested. Catherine nodded. Thank you, Ryan. I just don't want to make the same mistake again. Our relationship gradually evolved through this process, and we learned to communicate better and support each other. Despite all our efforts, Adam hasn't really disappeared from Catherine's life. He reappeared on her social media platforms, trying to reconnect with her. One day, Catherine received a private message from Adam. Catherine, I'm really sorry for everything that happened before, and I think there's still a chance that we can work together. I hope you'll give me a chance to explain. Catherine saw the message, and once again waves rippled inside her. She hesitated and decided to tell me. Ryan, Adam contacted me again and said he wanted to explain everything, Catherine said. I froze, a little uneasy in my mind, but tried to stay calm. Catherine, is it possible to remember the evidence? He is not someone you can trust. We need to protect our family and our future. Catherine nodded, but there was a hint of struggle hidden in her eyes. It was a hesitation about unfulfilled dreams and an uneasiness about a confused future. Over the next few days, Catherine and I worked together to deal with the re-emerging crisis. She finally decided to completely cut off contact with Adam and block him from all social media. Ryan, I figured it out. We need to work together, not pin our hopes on others, Catherine said firmly. I felt a twinge of relief. Catherine, this is the way we should go. Together we can face the challenges ahead, no matter how difficult. In order to rediscover our trust and passion for each other, we decided to engage in some new activities together. We started taking creative writing classes together, taking short trips, and signed up for certain skills we were both interested in. These shared experiences allowed us to rediscover what makes each other tick and build more shared memories. Once in class, the instructor arranged an impromptu writing session on the topic of reclaiming hope, and Catherine's essay struck a chord with me. She wrote, "Sometimes the hope in confusion and betrayal is hidden in the most inconspicuous places, seemingly lost, but actually just waiting for new discovery and understanding. The distance between us can be crossed with just one honest confession and a common effort." After reading her words, I felt, for the first time, that maybe our future really could be better. Through this journey, our marriage has gradually become stronger and more stable. Of course, we still face many challenges, but we have learned how to face and solve them together. Catherine also started to realize her dream gradually. She opened a small studio to focus on writing and art creation. I was there to support her and be her strongest backer. In the third spring and summer of our marriage, I finally felt a peace and happiness I hadn't felt in a long time. "Ryan, thank you for being there for me and supporting me in every decision I make," Catherine said softly. "Catherine, we wouldn't be here today without your determination and courage. I'm so proud of you and honored to be with you on this journey," I responded. Our story continues, but I know deep in my heart that we have found a common direction and goal. No matter how daunting the future may be, if we are honest and work together, everything will be better. After that difficult time, Catherine and I gradually got our relationship back on track. She focused on her writing and art, while I regained my focus on my family outside of work. We began to meet every challenge in our lives together, and our trust and understanding of each other grew deeper and deeper. One early summer morning, Catherine received a publication notice for her mixed poetry collection and excitedly told me, "Ryan, my book is coming out, and they said they'll be hosting a book signing at the end of the year." I looked at her with relief. "Catherine, this is all the result of your hard work. I'm really proud of you." However, just when we think all is settled, Adam appears in our lives once again. This time, he attempts to pressure Catherine's publishing studio through a third party to pull her book and also accuses Catherine of plagiarizing his ideas. Catherine turned very pale when she learned the news. "Ryan, Adam is messing up again, and he's talking about taking legal action against me." I was outraged but tried to stay calm. "Catherine, don't worry. We're going to take this through legal channels. His accusations are baseless, and we are going to stand up for our rights." We decided to hire a lawyer to respond to Adam's threats. After a series of legal proceedings and submission of evidence, Adam's lies were gradually exposed and the court dismissed his charges with a warning against further harassment. Catherine was very strong through this process, and I admire her determination and courage even more. The night after the trial, Catherine and I were on the balcony quietly watching the night sky. She suddenly whispered, "Ryan, thank you for always being there for me and walking me through this." I took her hand in mine. "Catherine, we're mates and we'll face whatever storms lie ahead together." Throughout this series of events, we not only overcame Adam, but more importantly, grew spiritually by facing these challenges together. Catherine has not only successfully published her work, but has also gained increasing recognition for her resilience and talent. I remember once she spoke at a literary salon about her work and the story behind it. Days and confusion are all part of life, but if we face them with courage and always believe in ourselves, we can find our true direction. Listening to her words, I silently applauded her from the stage, my heart filled with pride and emotion. Her growth is the result of our joint efforts. A few months later, Catherine and I decided to take a trip to give each other a chance to relax and re-examine our lives. We chose a quiet town where we spent a peaceful and beautiful vacation. "Ryan, it's beautiful here. Thank you for bringing me here," Catherine whispered as she leaned on my shoulder. "Catherine, this is just the beginning. We have so many wonderful things ahead of us. As long as we are together, everything will be better," I replied. This trip not only allowed us to find peace and happiness that we hadn't felt in a long time, but also allowed us to re-examine the meaning of life. We decided to continue to pursue each other's dreams together while cherishing every ordinary day. After returning to the city at the end of our vacation, our lives became fuller and busier. Catherine's new book was a huge success and became a bestseller, and I received major recognition and promotion for my efforts at work. Together, with hard work and love, We are creating a future that belongs to us. Ryan, despite all the storms in between, I feel happy now and thankful that we came together. Catherine said to me one sunny afternoon. I smiled and responded to her, Catherine, no matter how many more challenges lie ahead, we will no longer shy away from them because we know that true strength lies in supporting and trusting each other. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.